Hey guys, this is your host, Mr. Straight Talk, and I'm just here to chat about. Just watched Chris Wallace interviewing President Trump on Fox News, and I felt I should just start a podcast and just discuss this with you guys, whoever's on Podbean and listening to the podcast can ask questions, and we can just probably chat. You can call in as well. So I'll just share a few points that I thought about the interview, and I just see how we go from there on and hit other points, which, as again, disclaimer, I'm not an expert, so I'll be speaking what comes to my mind. So we'll see where this podcast goes. So I watched the podcast, and it's pretty interesting. I think what I felt listening to the podcast, and again, it's just me watching it, and I have no opinion about what Chris Wallace stands in terms of his opinion about his political choice. But I got this feeling that Trump probably has pulled some serious strings and caused probably and shaken some people to the core who are at the top. I mean, top means they control what we hear and what we decide on choosing things in our life. And this, again, I just felt, when you listen to how hard Chris Wallace was coming on Trump for his questions, and then you watch CNN, they're always hard on Trump, but they're never hard on any Democratic candidate. Democrats are all united, and I can speak freely. I honestly don't have any political affiliation. I live in America for over 50% of my life, and I give and owe a lot to the country and nation and the people of this nation. And I've seen a lot. I have no political affiliation with any particular party, and I give you that as a straight up answer. I don't really have any sort of bias on the side that I'm doing this podcast for a particular reason. But I want to speak about it because I felt there's a need for it. I felt there was a need for somebody to stand up against something so obvious about a bias in the media. You can say and get away with a lot of things if you belong to a certain party, if you belong to a certain community, if you belong to a certain mentality, you can get away with a lot more things. And I just feel in 2020, that is absolutely bogus. I mean, I could use a bigger term. I could use a different term, but I just don't want to. But you guys understand what I'm saying. I think in this day and age, that is completely bogus. So, you know, my question, and I keep coming back to media. I keep coming back to media like CNN or MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS. You pick any. You pick any. And you can go on YouTube and look up any of the talks, any of the interviews that these medias have done with a Democratic candidate or Trump, or let's say even a Republican candidate, and you would see a total bias towards the left. Now, I'm not saying left is right or left is wrong or right is right or right is, well, let's say Republicans are right or Republicans are wrong, but I'm just saying there is a bias. There is a bias in the media, and unfortunately, that's what people in the country, people in the world, they get their first-hand information. So they rely on this media, they rely on certain reporters, and they trust these reporters to be not biased. And I'm just trying to be fair. I'm just trying to be completely neutral here. I'm trying to be open. I'm trying to speak my mind because I just cannot, I cannot see unfairness unfolding in front of the eyes and just not speak about it. I think that is not what freedom of speech is. I think that is not what courtesy is. So I just thought maybe I should just speak into the podcast and just speak what I feel about it. So I felt Chris Wallace today was pretty tough on. I think to some extent reporters need to be tough. Reporters need to ask the right questions, and I feel, up until the time when January of 2020, when the United States got hit with the coronavirus, the COVID, when the world was already going through the suffering, and it hit our shores a little later than what it hit the EU. I felt Trump was doing okay. Trump was not doing bad in terms of economy. I think you were seeing numbers which were uh, were pretty blown out. I mean, you would say unemployment numbers were going low. You would say unemployment numbers in minorities, which I belong to, were low. I'm not a white, I'm not a Caucasian. I am brown. Okay, so just let you guys know I'm brown. I'm not white. So people listening to my podcast, not make any assumption. As I said before, I'm not a Republican and I'm not even a Democrat. I just want to speak my mind, and you'll be surprised which political party I belong to. So let's not make any assumptions on what I speak. I try to be fair. So if I cannot see, I just can't stand for things which are unfair. So that's what I'm speaking out for. So I'm just saying that until coronavirus hit a pandemic status and it hit the United States borders, things were just fine. The media was still finding few things to go and attack Trump, but there wasn't much success in that because people were just not willing to bend to that. But then they got this, a big, a token or a gift in terms of coronavirus. And I feel Trump should have handled that in a better way. I feel even at this point, masks are important. How do I know that? Well, I know it. Okay. I know it because if you put something on your face, it's common sense. No matter how thick or how thin the pores within the threads of a cloth mask are, you still are going to some extent prevent the number of particles that come out of your nose or your mouth when you exhale or you sneeze or you cough. It's called an expectorant. The particulate matter, it's going to be less in number than you don't have any barrier on. Just common sense. So I felt that it was handled to some extent. I don't blame Trump. He's not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He just goes with his instincts. And sometimes he's only human and he can make mistakes. But this was, everybody was getting cornered with this new virus. Even, you were getting conflicting data from the World Health Organization. They initially said that the virus cannot be transmitted between humans and humans. And then we all know how that unfolded. And, it's just a mess. Let's just call it that. So you have a president who's a sitting president, and people can attack him. People can use their freedom of speech. The media can do that. But that guy has a job. He's sitting on that seat. He's sitting in the Oval Office. He has a job. He's getting the information from the sources that he has. He has Fauci. He has Birx. He has CDC director. He has FDA. He has the Surgeon General. He has WHO. He gets all this information, and he doesn't have any medical background. So he's going to go with the numbers that it comes and hits the wires. And initially you see the numbers not trending that high. The borders are closed, right? Nobody's flying in from outside. But the problem with that is we don't know how many are in the country already. So he has to make that decision whether to not drive a sense of anxiety in the community, in the common public, not to drive fear in the public as a leader, and also to keep a balance of not to let go of this situation out of control. So at first, if you have to dissect what Trump did from the first thing that he took over as, in charge of course, he's in charge of anything that happens to the country, but in terms of pandemic that hit America, you have to understand he was getting false information or not accurate information. And then there were occasions where you saw certain people in charge who were saying that masks are not that efficient. Hey, hi Zozo, or Zozo, you joined me. Hi to you. So if you have any questions, Zozo, just hit that chat button or call in, and we'll be happy to chat. So when that, so he was getting these informations from all around him, the folks who were in charge of the coronavirus task force, and he had to make that decision. You had Fauci on tape saying that masks are not effective. I don't understand how he did that. I mean, he's an infectious disease specialist. He is an MD. Fauci dedicated his entire life on studying viruses and infections. It's common sense. I mean, I know it, you know it, Zozo, everybody else knows it. If you put a barrier on your face or your nose, if you sneeze, the number of particulate matter that comes out of your nose and your mouth is going to be significantly low, irrespective of the pore size in between the threads of the cloth mask. So that is a given. So Fauci's on the tape saying that masks are not effective, but social distancing is. So what is Trump going to do? Trump's not going to listen to his panel, his MD, who is supposed to be the director of NIDH. He has to listen to that. So I can give credit to Fauci for one reason. At that time, the United States of America didn't have enough PPE. So they were struggling to source the PPE for their own doctors who were fighting the COVID on front lines. So you had doctors and the nurses and the staff in the ER, in the ICUs, who were struggling to find personal protective equipment. You had doctors who were seeing patients on an emergency basis in their private practice for other reasons other than COVID, to keep them going to the ER so they don't get exposed to certain things which are worse than what condition that they are right now in. And those doctors and those offices didn't have personal protective equipment. So we all knew that there was shortage of PPE. Now, what I want the government to investigate on is, why is there a shortage of PPE in our country? Why is that? Well, we need to investigate whether the previous administration lacked on filling up our resources, or was there any sort of complete negligence in terms of previous administration to not even think of a pandemic? Besides that, why are we relying on just one nation to source our personal protective gear? Guys, I would think food, medicines, home or housing, and clothes, okay? It's essential. It's you as a nation have to source these basic essential things within your borders. It doesn't matter. You outsource this basic needs, basic essential supplies, you are done as a nation. Because the other nation can hold you in a corner, pin you down by not releasing that product for whatever reason. They can give you any reason, And I'm not going to take names here, but we all know what happened. What I want Attorney General Barr and Secretary of State Pompeo to look into is, how did the United States export mass amounts of personal protective equipment out of our country to China in November, in December, and in January? You got Attorney General Barr and Secretary Pompeo. I have serious doubt that you're listening to my show, but if you are, you got to look into the export logs. I'm sure you already are, but you got to look at who were involved in exporting and depleting our personal protective equipment supplies from our country. There were drives which were done to deplete the supplies of all major suppliers. You pick up Henry Schein, you pick up Patterson, you pick up any major suppliers within our country, and you would realize that there was certain drive which was done in a coordinated basis. And I'm not saying anything suspicious here. Maybe it was just for humanity's sake, but it was driven where all important personal protective equipment was taken from our country and sourced it to China. Well, you gotta understand, over 80% of personal protective equipment, take masks, you take gowns, you take head caps, you take anything that is required to protect a person from another, especially in a hospital setting. You're talking about a doctor or a nurse or a therapist. That comes from China. We all know that. Okay? There's nothing to hide about it. It's not a lie. We know it comes from China. And we also know that it wasn't just the United States, but it was the European Union, especially Italy, who also had a similar drive where they exported a lot of PPEs to China. And when Italy was hit, where Italians had the worst attack of COVID, where there were deaths which was skyrocketing. There was no end of COVID related deaths. You couldn't even see a light at the end of the tunnel. There was just a tunnel which was never ending. Italians asked for help. Obviously, they wouldn't ask for help to everybody, but they were more leaning towards China, and China did not provide that help. As a matter of fact, there is proven fact that the same supplies that came out of Italy to China, which were sent from Italian government to Chinese government for no charge, it was a humanitarian cause, a PPE supply, that same shipment, Chinese government tried to sell it back to China at a very high cost. I mean, how could you do that? So what I'm getting to is the media. The media never exposes these facts. So you have a person sitting in the White House. You have a president who has to make these decisions. Guys, it's a pandemic. You're not prepared. You can do 100 things and you can be wrong once, and you will be wrong more than once. How you address the issue of a pandemic. And Obama would have been in the same position. He would have done the same mistake. It would have been Clinton. It could have been Bush. It could be Reagan. It could be Lincoln. It could be George Washington. You never know. You never know what they would have done. But I'm just saying that attacking somebody for things which are not fair I just feel that the media doesn't do it justice when it covers Trump. And again, I'm saying I do not belong to the Republican Party. I can tell you that because I just know it. I don't belong to Republican. I have no say about the Democratic Party as well. I'm not a white. I'm not a Caucasian. Do not call me a racist. I'm brown. Okay? So again, then you talk about things where you start looking at certain parts. Okay, the media talks about Trump making mistakes, about not helping people to get that point across to wear a mask. Okay, but you do have a responsibility, right? CNN, you do. Fox, you do. MSNBC, you do. CBS, you do. Why don't you guys reporters who have so many viewers try to make that point across. Why do you have to agree? Why do you guys have to agree that it's okay to come out in public, in masses, risking lives of people? We know the coronavirus figures show that the minorities in the country are the people who suffered the most. Hispanics, blacks, browns, they were the people who died the most. Why would you, as a media, say that it's not safe to go out without a mask in public in thousands and thousands of groups protesting? You are yelling, you're screaming, you're inhaling somebody else spitting. I mean, all those things. It's a reality out there, guys. It's a reality out there. This was a complete disaster. And you know why it was a disaster? Because the media doesn't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about people. They all care about what numbers they're going to get in their ratings. And that is a sad reality. Fox doesn't care. CNN doesn't care. Fox has an agenda about going and pleasing their Republican Party. CNN has an agenda of just pleasing the left liberal party. So it doesn't matter what you and I think, but we as people have to have that common sense. We need to protect ourselves. We are in an age where we could do protests in certain ways, that we can get together with friends and stream it. Protests have a position in the society, but a society is only good if there are people in the society. We are going through a pandemic. And it's people's lives at stake. Society is at stake. It's common sense in a pandemic which is spread through air, and by breathing air which somebody exhaled within less than 6 feet of distance, that you're not safe going out protesting in public with your clothes with each other. Why can't certain governors, why can't certain states, why can't certain leaders who we choose to lead us, why cannot they be responsible and take a bold decision of allowing people or giving them chance to protest virtually? I don't care. It's bad what happened, but it does not happen just at the time of a pandemic. This has been happening before, and it needs to be sorted out. But this is a time for us to sort out safety and lives of people. You are risking people. You're risking minorities. Governors, mayors, you're risking minorities of your community to go out and engage in close proximities with each other and risk their lives. You are failing as a leader. And I don't care what you think about it, but you have failed, and you know it, but you just want to be politically correct. This is not the time to play politics. This is the time for public safety. You have, on one hand, you say people shouldn't go out, people should wear masks. On the other hand, it's okay for you to allow people to gather. On one hand, you say people shouldn't go out in churches and should not go out in temples. On one hand, you say it's okay to gather and protest. That is not right. That's double standards. That is risking and playing with people's lives. And you know what? People are smart. People are smart and they are watching. People who went through that, they trusted you, you didn't stop them. They, if they are suffering through the coronavirus, your double standards are already exposed. I'm sorry to say that, but your double standards as leaders is already being exposed to those people who you think are going to support you, and they will not be supporting you because you played with their lives. You took control of their lives and you did not warn them. That was the problem. You failed in a pandemic. I'm sorry to say, Mr. Governor, Mrs. Governor, Miss Governor, Mayor, Senator, Congressman, Congresswoman, you guys failed because you chose politics over public safety. And I think it's fair to say hindsight is 2020, and Trump should have been more strong about his stance. But the liberals didn't do either. They didn't do their part either. So, we have the White House, who was more into showing signs of strength and courage and trying to not instill fear. And if I would say that, because that would be the only reason why Trump wouldn't show it's okay to wear masks and all those things. And I think that's his major flaw. But then you have on the other side, they didn't do good either of preventing people to get together. I mean, how stupid can our politicians be? How stupid can they be? They completely ignored public safety. They completely ignored how valuable our lives are. And that's what's going to be the deciding factor in this 2020 elections. Do you think Black communities, Afro-American communities, Hispanic communities, minority communities like what I am, do you think my community likes the concept of defunding the police? Guys, we don't. Okay? We don't. So, the silent majority that we talk about, we are watching, and we don't like our communities to not have police out there. Because you know what? There are a few people who don't follow the law. But there are many more people who respect the law, who trust the law. There are bad apples. There are bad apples anywhere and everywhere you go. There are bad apples, you go outside you go to a grocery store. You're gonna find a racist out there. You're gonna find a cashier who's gonna look at you, who's gonna look at me, look at my ID card, check my name, look at me with what my grocery bag is full of. But that's not America. That's not, if it was America like that, people would not come to this country, okay? If you guys believe that America is full of racists, you would not be immigrating to this great nation. It's as simple as that. Americans are not racists on a majority basis. But there are racists everywhere. My country I come from, you go put a foot on my country, they'll look at you like where you come from. So, you know, I would say you have more racist people outside America than there are inside America. And racism is bad. Racism is not something to be proud of. But what I'm saying is there's only one country in this world which has immigrants, which is founded on immigrants, and there would not be people coming into this country or pouring into this country if they thought that majority of the country is full of racism. When they look at police officers, okay, when I came to this country, when I looked at police officers, I trusted them because I felt they would protect me, and they did. But I'm not saying that some police officers are bad or they're racist, but not all. Not all of them are racist. They were the ones who jumped into the burning and falling World Trade Centers, the Twin Towers. Who do you think went in there? Who do you think went in there knowing that there was no chance of them coming out alive? They were the firefighters and the police officers. And now you're calling those folks racist. This is what the media has become. They can change personalities, they can change projections, they can change anything they want, and they know they control us. They know they control everybody. With a snap of a finger, just like that, they can make a hero who went into the burning towers, the crumbling towers, to save people. They can make that person into something so dark that just the thought of that person, just the thought of that would make you nauseous. That's how insane today's media is. Hi, Safari. Hey, Safari. How are you?
Bonjour.
How are you, buddy?
Chilling. I want to talk about potatoes, yo. Potatoes.
What's potatoes?
Potatoes are very incredible, no? They give you all the energy you need. At the same time, they're like very hard as well too, right?
Well, you know what, Safari? I think
What do you think?
I think you're in the wrong chat.
No. You're not thinking open-mindedly. Listen to my words and don't think about the outside words that I'm speaking about. I'm being profound right now, bro. If you open up your mind and listen to what I'm saying, you'll probably get my message.
This podcast is open for. This is an open forum, and I appreciate you calling in. But why don't you open up freely?
Yeah.
Why don't you explain to the listeners what you think? And guys, I appreciate Safari Destructed on coming on to the podcast, and let's have him speak up. Let's have him share what his thoughts are. So Safari, go ahead. Explain your point.
Are we gonna have an open conversation? Well, okay, so how do you guys feel about potatoes?
Potatoes?
Yeah. You can look at potatoes in a general perspective.
What do you mean, you guys? Let's talk about you guys.
What is a potato to you? When I tell you about a potato, what do you think about?
Potato to me is instant energy. Is a source of instant energy.
Instant energy. Great. See, we're getting somewhere now. Okay. So for you, potato is an instant energy, right? Because it's a food product, no?
It
Something that
is.
gives you
It
proteins
is.
and,
Oh,
and it nourishes you, right?
it's not proteins, but it's instant energy in terms of carbohydrates, and
Sure.
it's something which is hard, but it's it's pretty common, and it comes in different shapes and sizes. But it feeds people. It does its job of feeding people, taking care of hunger, and also is
Yeah.
available to public in masses.
Correct. But then again, now I have much more respect about you because of the fact that you can look up. You went further for my basic question and you derived into a much more complex conversation, right? Because some other people, if I ask them, what is a potato to you, they'll be like, oh, it's a potato. And it could be a basic thing. And then they cannot see anything further than a potato. But how you derive any information and you can make a sense out of it makes you a different not that doesn't make you any different from any other person, but like the way that you perceive information and respond upon it makes you in a much more interesting category for me personally to have a conversation with. So let's
Right.
talk now, bro, because you're a much more open person than I thought before. Because you answered a question that's very ridiculous in a much more responsive way. You did not have to answer that question, but you answered it in a much more profound way. So now I can take you much more seriously,
Sure.
right?
So so
Okay,
so
so
tell so
what
tell
are
so
we
tell
talking
me
about?
so t- so tell me about what is your opinion about what is your opinion about what do you
Yeah.
feel how the media is doing justice to people of this country? What do you think about the
What
government in
country are we
general?
talking about? Because I live in
We
Canada.
well no we're not talking about Canada, we're talking about United States of America.
Okay,
But
I
you
live in
but you
America
can
too. I used to live in Maryland.
You can talk about America. You can talk about America, right? You lived in Maryland, you
I
said?
grew up
Okay.
in America.
Okay.
I grew up in America, yeah.
Well, so why don't we see your point as somebody, say you said you're in Canada right now, so it's perfect. So perfect. So why don't
Yeah.
you give us your point as somebody, as a third person who watches and sees what happens in America, in the United States. Okay. So what do you think the media portrays? What do you think about not just the blacks, but let's talk about other things that's happening in the country. Let's talk about discrimination.
Oh, I am also black, by the way, so get that in your mind as well too. I'm a black guy who lives in Canada who lives in America as well too.
So
So,
here's
and I'll be very open about
here's
anything that I'm
here's
talking about.
here's my point. The very
Yeah.
fact, the very fact that you and
Sure.
me are discussing that
Yeah.
you are black and I'm brown and somebody else who's listening to our podcast is white, that's the failure. That is a failure of media. That is a failure of the government. That is a failure of our leaders to lead us. We are
You're
humans.
right. You're very right.
We
Because
are
we should never
humans.
be. We should.
We should
Yeah, you're
not be
right.
looking
Exactly.
at our skin. We should not be looking at whether
Exactly.
we
To
have a
address
certain
ourselves is our
correct
color.
color. Correct. We
You,
should
you,
not be.
you, bro. I love you for your point of view, man. This is
We
fucking
should
incredible.
not.
This is
We
true.
should
So
not be
true.
looking at who we love. Okay? You should not be looking at somebody who you love, what your sexual inclination is. It does not matter to me. It does not matter to you what my thoughts are. It shouldn't matter to the politicians and the leaders. What we expect
Correct.
from our leaders is they protect us. They protect us because we elect them to protect us. It's their fiduciary duty.
Yeah. Very
It's
true.
their fiduciary duty as a leader to support us within the borders of our country. You are in Canada. Justin Trudeau is your leader. He needs to protect you. We are in America. Trump needs to protect us. Somebody else is in another country. Their leader needs to protect us. That's all. That's as simple as it is. We want our media to also protect us because you know why? They get more information than what you and me get. We watch them. We watch them about the coronavirus. We
Hmm.
watch them about what they expect, us to do with the masks and social distancing. But then you hear from one media, you hear
Hmm.
from the other media. It's not, it's
It's not the
not,
same
it's
situation.
not the
Yeah,
same. It's not the same. And then what do we do? Who do we listen to? Do we listen to somebody that we are politically affiliated with? What does Republicans do in this country? Do they listen to Fox News? What do liberals do? They listen to CNN. That shouldn't be. That should
yeah,
not be.
exactly. Now
That
you're
should
picking
not be.
sides.
Exactly.
You're
That should
picking
not
sides.
be.
When you do that, you're
You're
picking sides, and then
you're picking sides for your life. How stupid can the media make people look? And you know what? You know what, my friend?
exactly.
People are not that stupid. People are not
No, they're not.
that
They're not.
stupid. They know the right thing. They know, and that's what I was coming up to. They know putting a barrier in front of your nose, putting a barrier in front of your mouth is much better than not having anything. They know that. So
Hmm.
there's no point of one party saying that it's okay not to put a barrier, the other party saying it's okay to put a barrier. People are going to do exactly what is good for their life and for their safety and protecting their family, protecting their children, protecting their community. They're going to do that. So what's going on in Canada right now? So let's talk about Canada. Is everybody safe in your family and
Canada,
friends?
well, Canada on the side that I live in Canada, I'm on the east end of Canada. I'm in Toronto. Toronto is like the eastern end of Canada, right? Everything is okay out here, but at the
Good.
same time, it's like the same problems. Okay, in America, like the way things got released and dealt with in Florida and some other states
Hmm.
is ridiculous, right? We have not
Right.
had the same issues here so far. Well, not as big, but there's some. Okay, in America you have counties. In Canada we have provinces.
Correct.
That's how we look at the environment or the situations or where people are living to begin with. So many provinces in Canada have had the outbreak coming back up again at almost the same level as some of the provinces, as some of
Some of the states,
counties
some
in
of the states in the
America.
United States. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, some of the counties in United States. Because a state can have different counties in one state, right?
Correct. Correct.
But some counties were taking care of situations better than some other counties, right? So it has to be a county based, because each county is led by a mayor. So each mayor has their own choice on running their own county. And if they're doing things in the right way, then you will see the right response. But if they're doing things the wrong way, you see the byproduct of it, right? It's the same case here as well too. And that's what I've been seeing. I'm in Toronto. Toronto's been okay because they're being very strict about how they're releasing things. But
Right.
there's other provinces out there that opened up their doors way before Toronto did that now are closing back their doors again because they rushed into it.
Well, it's a fair thing. I mean, everybody is trying to adapt to this new virus. We don't know how this. There is news that I just read a couple of days ago that came from Hong Kong that this virus is now mutating at a pretty big pace, and people are just struggling to adapt to this new mutation. So we don't know where this virus is going from. It's like flu, like influenza. Influenza
Yeah,
is a virus which is there for many, many years and it keeps mutating every single year. We keep taking these vaccines every year,
correct.
which is based on the virus that was the year before, and then we're struggling to beat this virus the next year. I believe and
But
I presume that it's going to be the same with this coronavirus, and it's going to
but
keep
this is the
mutating every
example.
season.
It is true, but this is the thing that we have to appreciate for us. Okay, we have to come with the general acceptance that the fact is that we're dealing with the virus to begin with, right? It's a virus. Viruses tend to mutate over time because a virus's job is to figure out a way for it to survive and not get killed to begin with. Just like human beings, our job is to like build up and multiply and increase our generations. Like we want to have like grandsons, grandkids, whatever, a son and a daughter. We're out there to procreate. So do viruses as well too. Viruses are like that. They're living beings, but they're not the living beings that we want to be around with. Sure, but viruses mutate. That's in nature. That's why AIDS, nobody has a cure for AIDS. Nobody has a cure for flu. The common flu, nobody has ever had a cure for it because the virus always mutates all this time, all these years, right? So we should
Correct.
know about that to begin with. Let's not be
Correct.
afraid about it. Let's know the facts and deal with the facts. Sure. Now we have a different kind of version of a flu virus. Sure. It's something that we've not dealt with before, but let's not make it a bigger deal than it is, but let's not make it less of a deal than it is, because it's very serious as well too,
It is, and you know
right?
what? It's very serious. But you know what's going to happen. I commend the people in all the countries who are maintaining social distancing, who are wearing masks, who are washing their hands, because that's going to
Correct.
help. That's going to help not just to stabilize this virus, but also help to stabilize the influenza that's going to hit us in fall. And that's
Yeah,
what's
correct,
important.
yo. Because
That's going to,
the
yeah,
fall is dangerous, man. People
exactly,
are now
exactly.
wait, yo. It's coming
Yep,
up soon, bro. We have like
yep,
maybe 4 months left before the fall comes in, and then
yep,
that's gonna be something different.
exactly,
Like
exactly. And
that's scary, bro.
yeah, but you know what? It's good that we are prepared for it because we are doing the best we can. Hygiene was never that important to everybody at every household, every single person, down to the base, and it's now the most important part, and that's what's gonna save us, and that's what's gonna keep us
You're
alive.
so right. You're very right. You're very fucking right, bro. Because like yeah,
Yep,
nobody took about that. Nobody
yep,
took hygiene very seriously before, but now they
exactly.
really are. No,
We
everybody's
don't.
washing their hands for more than 30
We,
seconds at a
we
time.
are washing our hands. We're not shaking anybody's hands. We're not hugging people. We're not getting close, and that's gonna keep the flu numbers down. That's gonna keep the emergency rooms to not get bogged down. That's gonna help the ICUs in our hospitals to not get overwhelmed. That's gonna help our doctors to provide the treatment to everybody who needs that treatment. That's gonna help the humanity. That's going to help us to survive. That's going to help us to stay healthy. And that's what's the basic simple thing. That's what it comes down to. Basic simple thing of keeping us safe is just basic thing of washing our hands. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's not Life is not too complicated.
Wow,
That's what it
that's
comes
true.
down to. Life is not that complicated. Well, let's go to this. Have you heard about this? Have you read about the new 1619 project? What is your thought about that?
I have not heard of anything about it actually. Can you teach me about it, please?
I'm not a teacher, so forgive me if I'm not telling you.
Educate me on it then.
Well, I'm not the best person. I'm a nobody. If you see my name of my podcast is Mr. Straight Talk, and my disclaimer is that I'm not an expert, and I'm a nobody. I'm just a common man. But what I read about the New York
So am
Times
I. So
piece.
am I.
So in the New York Times piece on 1619 Project is projecting America as a country which which protects slavery, promotes slavery,
Mhm.
and is based on slavery, where the entire freedom or the entire independence of that nation was based on the path of preserving slavery. And my concern honestly with you and with me as a person, I'm a minority, I'm brown, and my concern with that is I came to this country as an immigrant, okay?
Mhm.
And I struggled. But if I was portrayed as somebody with 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 something that I could not achieve because I don't have that efficiency in myself because I'm brown and I'm not white, I would be
Mhm.
offended more. I would be offended more to the core that some guy in front of me is judging me that I'm inferior to that person because of my color,
Mhm.
because of my race,
Mhm.
because of my religion, because of my
Which
caste,
is
because of where I
fucked
come
up, man.
from.
That's fucked up way to look at a person.
Exactly. And that's what it comes down to. I feel bad because I know my friends who are Afro Americans, who are blacks, they will get offended if they felt that they're inferior to people who are of different
Mhm.
race than them. And I don't think that's
Mhm.
right. That's right in 2020. I don't think it's right and it's fair because the country and the world is past slavery. Slavery was
That's correct.
based from United Kingdom as part of the colonialism that they did
on the spread.
Yeah, they spread through the entire world.
They spread through the entire world.
They spread to the entire world.
They spread to the entire world back. Yeah.
And you know, we shouldn't be talking about this stuff in 2020. That is my concern with this 1619 project. But again, and I feel bad for the media to keep pounding on this to make it look as if me, as a minority in this country, have to have a special status. Me as a minority in this country need to be looked upon by people who are whites and look at me with sympathy, with empathy. I don't want that. I don't want special status in this country. I want to stand on my own foot. I want to gain that equal respect from people who look at me, who look at me and appreciate what I do. And I want that equal status just as a normal person. I may not be as good as you, but I'm not as bad at what I do. So I want just that recognition, not just because of my skin, but I want that because of my soul and because of my talent. And that's where I would end this podcast, my friend. Thank you for joining, Safari. Appreciate you joining in. And guys, stay safe, stay healthy. We talked about masks. We talked about social distancing. We talked about, just respecting the virus. We talked about just think about common sense. Think about, the media wants you to know that you are inferior. You're not. Media wants you to look at you as a person of color. Don't look at you as a person of color. Look at you as a person. That is more important. Look at you as somebody with a talent. Look at you as somebody that can provide service to somebody who needs it. Look at you as a human being. And my friends, with that, I'll end the podcast.